Okay, so we're live again for another Tech Talk at Layer 7. Today we're going to talk optimizing cloud-based mobile apps and various other things around API optimization and HTML5. Happy to welcome back Alex Gaber. He did a Tech Talk for us in August on Hackathons, which was really good, well received, and we've got him back talking API optimization. He was just given the talk at Cloud Expo. You were just at a hackathon in Vegas last week. I think you were at QCon, maybe even DFrag as well. So you're well traveled in the last few days. So as people come into the stream, I'll just remind everybody that you can tweet your questions. So our hashtag is Layer7Live. You can chat them right through the chat box on the right. You may notice that if you follow through to the email or from the email that we've got a new chat format, we've got a new landing page, and it's designed to make things easier for you guys to get your questions in. But if you've been here before and you kind of went the old route through Facebook, we'll still take your questions through the Facebook chat. Like I said, through Twitter, and if you can't stick around to wait for the answer, you can email them. The email is techtalk@layer7.com. So we'll make sure we'll get an answer for you to your question. So I've got Jose here as well, and at the end, I think we're gonna give away one or two of these nifty Layer 7 T-shirts.
Probably two, but you know.
So we've got three versions of our Layer 7
T-shirts.
T-shirts.
We've got. Am I in the frame?
This
yes.
way a little bit.
Yeah. Move to your right.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. And we have this other shirt up for grabs.
Looks like there's some JSON there.
Yep.
You're not in.
Don't you guys worry? You're looking at the wrong camera. So.
Okay.
We're there. So those are the two options. We'll probably ask a question towards the end of the stream, and we'll.
So
pick
stay
two
tuned
people.
to the end if you want one of those shirts.
Okay.
All right. So.
Are people joining me? We should kind of I can get started.
Yeah, we should get going. I'm just if you're just joining us now, we've got Alex Gaber. He's the Layer 7 API Evangelist, and we're going to talk optimizing cloud-based mobile apps, HTML5, API optimization. Take your questions. Alex,
Yes.
Would you mind introducing the topic a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
So here at Layer 7, we run a lot of different APIs for all sorts of enterprises, government, and Web 2.0 companies. And more, we're working with them for mobile app projects. And more, we're seeing a lot of demand to build those mobile apps using HTML5, PhoneGap, jQuery Mobile, so that they can easily have a quick go-to-market time and be fully cross-platform, support iOS, Android. A lot of enterprises are still supporting BlackBerry, and we do hear interest in Windows 8. So now you're really looking at 4 platforms you need to support with your mobile apps. But integrating APIs into those mobile apps, you're really kind of going back to more of the client-server type of challenges for optimizing performance of those apps, providing the best user experience for those apps that are web-connected when we still live in a world where, as we all know, our phones are popping onto 2G, 4G networks. Sometimes they go offline, and how do you deal with all of those different aspects of it? So that's, I think, why we wanted to do this Tech Talk today, is to really engage with some of our customers and friends out there about what are some of those best practices, what have we been learning out in the field where we do have these API-driven mobile app projects, and what are some of the best practices around that. So some of the major considerations are what are the pros and cons here of doing these native mobile apps. Things like caching data, making those apps available offline, because we're using the WebKit browser here being wrapped natively, so it gives that native user experience feel. But how do you kind of mask that and make sure that the user has a completely seamless experience? They feel like it's a fully native client app that is being powered by the web and was built using HTML5 and PhoneGap. So that's kind of the basics here. Wanted to talk about And then the other thing is this is an ongoing controversy. As we kind of heard recently, Mark Zuckerberg at TechCrunch saying, I think his quote was here, the biggest mistake we made as a company was betting too much on HTML5 rather than native. And that was about a month or two ago. And then even just as early as recently as February of this year, Zuckerberg's former CTO said, we think this experience on HTML5 can be as good or even better than native platforms. So we've seen Facebook, one of the biggest companies out there, switch from HTML5 back to native. And so I want to kind of discuss that. That's leading a lot of more controversial discussion here around it. It caused a lot of business owners for projects to really question HTML5 and PhoneGap apps, while there still is a strong business case for building apps that way. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about here today.
So sorry, I missed that. Why did Facebook switch from HTML5 to full native?
Right. So great question. Because it was really part of this kind of whole question of optimizing. The Facebook app, of course, is fully connected to the web. When you share a photo in there, when you get your messages, it's constantly talking back and forth to the web. Unlike a game on your phone where you download it, install it, it sits on your phone. It's running on your phone. It doesn't have to talk to the internet.
Right.
Facebook or any API-connected app, it's constantly pulling those APIs and getting data back and forth. It's caching data on the app side, pushing data back up to the web. And what Facebook, there's many reasons, I'm sure. Partly for getting the native UI controls and that fully snappy, responsive native UI feel. But they also had trouble with caching data and optimizing the performance of that data. Users in different countries are on less performant cell phone carrier networks, so maybe suddenly their app is slow and not working. So that was really their kind of justification, and that was why they switched back. Now that there's still plenty of good reason and opportunity to optimize those HTML5 apps for other uses, whether it's enterprise or social. Those issues can still be overcome. And as we see the HTML5 mobile app community around PhoneGap as well evolving and growing, there's many more workarounds available. Developers are contributing code snippets to optimize these types of things. But that was a decision Facebook made recently, and it was very well received. Everyone talks about how nice the new apps are. But that's why we're doing this talk today. Those things can be fixed, at least for most use case needs, and get those apps performing to the level that the users need them to be performing at.
Cool. Okay, so I just want to remind it, we see more and more people joining into the stream. Don't forget to chat your questions. I hope it hasn't become confusing. We built a landing page to try to make the getting your questions to us a little bit easier. But if you're on Facebook, you can still check in and chat. You can use our Twitter hashtag Layer7Live. If you're on the landing page, just simply go to the chat box on the right, type in, you can put in an alias if you want, and just keep your questions coming for Alex. He's ready. And you can see that he's got the Golden Gate Bridge in the backyard. It's coming into focus a little bit. So first question for Alex. Are there any API integration considerations when deciding between jQuery mobile single page versus multi-page?
Sure. That's a very interesting question, and especially one of the things that I've learned is about decoupling the APIs from the user experience, never requiring that next page to load while having that API call being made and delivering data back. So a user has to wait for that next page to load. With mobile apps, users have really come to the expectation that they tap on a button, that next page will load right away, which is different than the expectations on the regular modern web, where we still accept, I'll click on it, what's the next load time? Is it 2 seconds, 5 seconds? Mobile apps, we still want to have that instant response. And with jQuery Mobile single page versus multi-page, jQuery Mobile really could be done single page, but often I've seen better performing apps and maintaining a better overall user experience doing the multi-page approach, just because you can more easily separate out those API calls and separate, okay, on this page, I'm going to load the page first, then I'm going to invoke that service to get that JSON payload, and I'll parse it after, or maybe prefetch data before you go to those next pages. if you do the single page approach, it can get much more complicated and confusing as far as what data you're loading in, and what step you are in the process of the user experience flow, and when you should make those API call requests in.
Okay. Ashok just asked quickly, on a light note, where is Alex presenting from? Is that snow that is seen through his window?
No, I think the lighting's a bit off here, but we are here live in San Francisco, and out the window there is the Golden Gate Bridge, and we wanted to try and bring that San Francisco feel here to the Tech Talk. And it is raining here, so it's raining and cloudy, so it may look a little snowy.
And it's not raining in Vancouver, which is odd. It usually rains a lot. So, okay, we've got another question that came in through email. What are common challenges for roaming in the cloud, where many devices or apps are connected to a single backend?
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's something more and more. As a mobile app itself is really just a subset of functionality for a standard enterprise app functionality that you normally would expect. And so we may right now take in the case of, say, CRM, you're going to log a new customer's data in your app in the field. That data needs to immediately be pushed up to the cloud so it's accessible to the rest of your team in your SharePoint or your CRM system, and having that sync across all devices. I think roaming in the cloud is a term more used to describe from tablet to phone to computer, that I have all my devices. The other similar concept is iCloud, and it's that syncing of data across all different devices. And that's a big consideration as enterprises build these mobile apps. How do we let these users roam? Because now they have that expectation. Whenever they log data in their mobile device, they expect that data to be instantly available in their enterprise servers, enterprise server-driven systems, and having that data sync across all devices. So that's another big consideration, is making sure that your API integrations for your mobile apps are going to be driving that data quickly back up, so it's always synced and always showing what's currently the most up-to-date information.
Right, okay. Just wanted to ask you a little bit about the hackathon you were at this weekend. It was AT&T Vegas? What was,
yeah.
Maybe just tell us a little bit about that. What
Sure.
kind of apps were they building? What were they using?
Sure. There were a lot of API-driven apps there at the hackathon, and actually brought up some more relevant issues for here. We partner with AT&T for their hackathons, just so everyone know, and take our customers and/or API experts to the hackathons to help the integration of APIs into apps. And so it was a great event in Las Vegas. They actually do have a thriving tech community there. Some very talented developers came, and there were some great ideas. Some things that came up were, one team was using a mobile backend as a service platform, and that platform, this is on Saturday, obviously, for the hackathon, and suddenly that mobile backend went down. And what that mobile backend provides the app is that it lets the app developer, they needed to set up a database because they want to have a web interface as well, to let part of some data be entered in the web. And suddenly that mobile backend in the middle of the day on Saturday, in the middle of the hackathon, it went down. And it was the hosting company's issue. It was not the company itself that provides this mobile backend. Right. But it raises a big concern as you start to depend on these API-driven backend platforms that are, fully cloud-based. What happens when that platform goes down suddenly? It may go down for 2 minutes, may go down for 20 or 2 hours. You need to make sure that your mobile app can still be totally functional and be available effectively offline, even though it is an API-powered app using a backend. So that was something really interesting that came up in the hackathon. The mobile backend is a platform, backend is a service company, got it back up and running. It took about an hour or two, so there was downtime. And in a hackathon environment, which is often resembling of the real world, where we do have deadlines and need to make things work and have demanding users, it went down. So that was kind of an interesting mobile app driven by an API experience that really reinforces how important it is to cache API call payloads into local storage. Make sure that the data is there. Make sure that pages will still load. Partly this concept of decoupling. My pages, my app should always load, regardless if I'm connected to the web or not,
Right.
and not just throw a nasty error to the user and say, "Oh, this is broken. This app doesn't work," and it would get shut down. So that was part of the hackathon. Another one that did come up, I'll mention, is I thought it was really cool. An app developer, he runs his own app development company there. Was really interested in building out the ultimate API for Las Vegas because he found that a lot of the data around visitors coming to Las Vegas, the data that drives those apps, is out of date. And people come to town and you can't get an app, he said, that has the latest show listings, that has the latest event information. So he wanted to create a super API that would drive the latest data and power the next generation of mobile apps. So when you land on the plane in Vegas, you're immediately connected into where you want to go and what you want to do. And again, that brings up the other issue of having APIs, having the apps be fully up to date and being really as recent data as possible in it, driven by APIs. But still, if you get off the airplane and your phone's not connected to the cell network, your app just doesn't throw errors and make it look confusing. So I see you typed a question in here, Steve.
Yeah, Rodan, sorry if I mispronounced your name, but thanks for the question. He asks, or she, are there mobile browsers that support HTML5 prefetching to improve the user experience?
Sure, yeah. So, we're talking kind of here, I'm talking, you can definitely do mobile web, and really what more I want to talk about was compiling to native, and would be hybrid native using HTML5, but then creating your native apps using PhoneGap typically, but you're still relying upon the WebKits of the devices. So on iOS you have the Safari WebKit that is still going to be used. So prefetching, it's really no different than you would do it in a regular website using JavaScript and prefetching that data on the fly. And part of the whole, what I've seen that's been really great is storybook, drawn out storyboard flows for the app's user experience. And within that flow and that storyboard, specifically putting in when do we want to prefetch this data, when is the user sitting idle in the app, and that we can go prefetch data that will be needed and make that a background process. And typically I've just seen that done just as a JavaScript request to prefetch that data and then store it into local storage, which in HTML5 you get 5 megabytes on the device. And so that's definitely something I've seen that's done. Windows, I've heard some issues on the new Windows phones and being able to do that same stuff and it not working quite as well. But again, that's why I do believe, as the community around PhoneGap grows, workarounds will be built to fix those kinds of things.
Right. Okay. So hopefully that answered your question. If you have anything to follow up with, just remind everybody again, people are coming in, so we've been live here for almost 20 minutes, so I just want to remind you that you can tweet your questions to Layer 7 Live, hashtag Layer 7 Live. You can email them to us at techtalk@layer7.com. And I mentioned before that we've been using a new landing page. So if you're someone who's joined us before and you're more comfortable with the Facebook interface, we're still there, so you can still check in and chat with the red button. But if you're on the landing page that we sent you to through the blog post or through the email, you can just simply type your questions into that chat box on the right. So like I said, I see more viewers coming in all the time, so just as a reminder, if any questions around optimizing cloud-based mobile apps, mobile app development, HTML5, Alex is here to answer those questions. So let's go to another one. Came in through email. Alex, what are screen transition considerations when integrating APIs?
Yeah. So if you're using a UI framework like jQuery mobile, often they do off you have the ability to say I want to slide transition, I want to flip transition, and one of the issues that I've come across many times is the transitions with jQuery Mobile get choppy, and because and it depends on the device you're on. If you're on a Galaxy S2, the processor is obviously not as powerful as the S3, and so those transitions are reliant upon the rendering engine capability and the CPU processing power of the device you're on. More and more, obviously, that problem will go away in the future, but we still need to accommodate for all sorts of devices, and we want to be able to have our apps work as smoothly across as many devices. So when doing the transitions between pages in the mobile app, I always say do not put any work on the app, or do not have any processing required while making that transition. So because I have seen apps that will say, okay, go to next page and do this transition, and then at the same time go make this API call request and get this data for that next page, and or on next page invoke service instantly, and I've seen that cause a lot more choppiness and less smooth transitions between pages in the mobile apps. And so that's definitely something I say when you do those transitions, it is rendered the WebKit is rendering that transition, and so take as much weight off the shoulders of the browser as possible when it's making that transition, and let the transition go quickly. And prefetch, if you do need to have data load instantly on the next page, try and prefetch that before you go to make that transition, and or let the next page load first, and then set a quick delay, and then prefetch the next set of data into that. But definitely you want to leave the browser itself as freed up as possible for resources to make those transitions smooth between pages.
Right. Do you see any? You mentioned earlier that as a developer, you've got to consider iOS, Android, Windows, and RIM, I guess, a little bit. But now, do you hear any chatter in the community with RIM releasing that new phone in the next little while, and their SDK, or any kind of talk around developers? Or if you're a developer, do you focus on Apple because it's the biggest kind of app store, or do you see people considering RIM and the Windows Phone as kind of upstarts?
Just grabbing here. So it's a great question, and I mean it depends what company you're doing the app for, and typically here, with Layer 7, we're talking more about enterprise apps that may be just internal within a company. More and more, I still do hear about RIM. I think I just saw yesterday that RIM has jumped back into 3rd place overall, and I don't want to discount RIM. I definitely hear them. Some people laugh about RIM and say, "Oh, RIM's gone. They're never." Hey, sometimes I work with a Layer 7 customer that's in the other whole part of the world, and they say, "Well, 90% of our users are on Blackberries." So we still need to accommodate for those various platforms and not just dismiss them. If you're building a game for something that you just want to distribute as a consumer game, sure, go iOS first and maybe only. iOS definitely drives more revenue per app built than Android. Android users seem to expect things more for free, but we definitely still need to account for all platforms. And that's why when I build a mobile app, I still want to use. I want to use PhoneGap because I want to be able to show. I want to let my friend who's on a BlackBerry run it. I know someone who's on a Windows phone, and people are still trying the new platforms. And as soon as we settle onto as soon as a person settles on one platform, they've kind of given up. I think we should all still be looking at what's out there new. I mean, right here I've got a RIM. It's a BlackBerry 10 Dev Alpha B device. They were giving these.
Oh wow!
Yeah, really cool. It runs their BlackBerry 10 software. So I got it for development. BlackBerry is really nice. They give out devices for free to developers. But I just charged this up yesterday to try running some apps on it because I think it's important to support all different platforms and be able to do that. And that's why for this talk we wanted to focus on HTML5 PhoneGap native apps, and because that means as a developer I can support BlackBerry. And whenever I work with enterprises, they still they say, yeah, well, most people are on iPhone or Android, but hey, this this executive still says they can't give up their BlackBerry, and they're not going to.
Right.
We need to support them, and that's why it's important to still keep. And that's why even with Facebook saying, "Oh, we want full native," they can do that because they can put 3 times the resources and build for 3 platforms all native, and invest in that. With HTML5, you still only build once, and
Right.
you may not get that perfect performance, but then that's why we talk about things like this today. Is say, okay, we may not get perfect performance always, but it's going to get us 90-95% of the way of where we need to be, and we're going to be able to do that in 1/3 of the time. And it's kind of something any project manager needs to weigh the pros and cons to that approach. But definitely, I still am a believer in multi-platform. I want to be able to support as many platforms as needed, and to be able to say, oh, well, we're only doing one platform, we don't care about anyone else. Well, that's just kind of short-sighted, I believe, and you need to be able to support many different platforms.
Do you develop them all at once, or would you pick a popular one and then, build it out after and say, okay,
well,
we'll hit Android in a
That's
few
the beauty
months?
of using a PhoneGap, is that you can. I'm a user. I use PhoneGap Build, and they have a hosted service. So if you're on a Windows PC and you want to build up your app for Mac, you can go to build.phonegap.com. You send them your HTML, your JavaScript, and CSS files, and they will wrap that as a native iOS app for you. They've got Apple computers sitting in the cloud that will that have automated scripting to create the IPA file that'll install on iOS. Now, same thing goes the other way around.
That's cool.
Right now in Windows, if you want to build a Windows app, you pretty much have to have a Microsoft Windows machine to do it. You cannot be on a...
Okay.
I was trying recently, and with the Mac computer, using a virtual machine, I installed the Windows Phone SDK, but it still wouldn't let me load it onto a device connected via USB to the computer. I needed to get, at the time, this is 2 months ago, some Microsoft guys were helping me. I said, no, you just need a Microsoft computer. So now they're doing it back against Apple. So that's partly the beauty here, is that you have a resource like PhoneGap Build, where it doesn't matter what you develop it on. They've got all these, the proprietary systems and SDKs running in the cloud. You just send it your HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and it'll load it for you. So all this means that the question of which platform do we go for first doesn't matter. You don't have to ask that question. You say, we're doing it for all 4 at once. No problem.
And PhoneGap's here in Vancouver too, aren't they?
PhoneGap was founded in Vancouver there, and it was acquired by Adobe about 1 year and 2 weeks ago. 2 of their employees moved down to San Francisco with Adobe, and the core engineering team is still up there in Vancouver. And they did rename, just so I'm clear too, they renamed the project to Cordova and brought it within Apache. And just fun little fact is that Cordova is simply the name of the street that they're located on there in Vancouver, Canada. And I think they're now called I know that their next version or something will be called Pender, and that's just the street around the corner.
Right,
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you know Vancouver, those are streets in the little neighborhood called Gastown, where there's quite a few little startups and design shops and stuff.
And that's a really, it's kind of a little bit unknown, but the Gastown district in Vancouver is a really thriving, up-and-coming tech scene, and they're solving a lot of these big problems. And that's, I think, it's a huge, huge problem to be solving, that PhoneGap is.
Have you? We've got another question from Roden. Sorry, if I'm butchering your name. Rodan. Have you compared PhoneGap to other frameworks such as Corona or App Accelerator Titanium?
Yes, great question. So there's several out there, and there's a few different approaches. And I think I had a little thing I printed out here for myself. I created kind of 4 different buckets of mobile apps today. The first one is just mobile web. It's just a mobile website. Second one would be hybrid native, HTML5 plus PhoneGap, which is really what we focused on today. The other one would be full native, doing it in Objective-C or Java. And then the other one I call is really hybrid native at runtime. And that's more the one of, so Appcelerator, there was one out of France called OpenPlug as well. And what these 2 frameworks did is that they have a runtime. So you basically can write your code HTML They really focus on JavaScript mainly. But what they do is with their SDK, when it compiles to native, and as far as I know, AppCelery still only supports BlackBerry. No, they do not support BlackBerry. They were just iOS and Android. They may have updated that. But what they do, they leverage full native UI controls. So you get that snappy response. You get basically they let you call instead of with PhoneGap you have to use basically graphics. And in most I use jQuery Mobile. There's definitely some other UI frameworks out there like Sencha that look beautiful. But often with Sencha, jQuery Mobile, because it's requiring every button, every graphic to be displayed by the WebKit browser on the mobile device, causes performance issues. And that's something that Appcelerator, these OpenPlug guys, they were kind of fixing that and saying, well, let's not recreate these graphics. Let's just use the native calendar from iOS. Let's use the native drop-down menu, scroller, whatever that Android OS provides. And that's what those approaches use. And so those are other ones out there. And I know you remembered, I mentioned there, Corona, I think was made by Anska. There's another one out there that I've been hearing more about from some friends called Trigger.io. It's another one, and they're actually more direct competitor to PhoneGap for how they do it. And another cross-platform framework is called RoMobile, or it's called Roads. They were acquired by Motorola, which is totally separate from PhoneGap. But they did pretty much exactly the same thing.
Sorry, what was it called?
Called Roads, RHODES. Roads framework. They were bought by Motorola Business Solutions about a year ago as well, a year and a half, yeah, just over a year ago. And Motorola has now rolled that into their own kind of business offering. And they say, hey, we're going to let you build your mobile apps for Android, Windows, iOS using our framework. And they kind of built a more proprietary enterprise-focused system where they actually, a lot of these things about API optimization, that's what that framework's really focused on heavily, is data syncing, data caching, the offline mode of the apps that are web-driven. So there are several out there, and there's different approaches. What I do like with PhoneGap is that they've really generated the biggest community around the world, and for something like this, it's key to have that community because workarounds are going to have to be built. There are always going to be new tweaks. I know even now with PhoneGap on the iPhone 5, they had a bug for a little while where a PhoneGap app, loading it on the iPhone 5, and it may be related to iOS 6 as well, but I know when you loaded PhoneGap apps on an iPhone 5, the keyboard would not come up on the apps, and it was a bug they had. So with any of these frameworks, you're always going to be somewhat chasing the platform vendors and be one step behind. I do hope that in the future here is kind of like as I've seen with Microsoft and vendors who build on Microsoft's platform, they get early releases, they get pre-beta releases, so they can make sure that their software will work when the full production GA release comes out. Hopefully more and more PhoneGap can work directly with iOS, Android, BlackBerry, Windows, get those pre-beta releases, make sure that everything works smoothly. But yes, to answer the question, there are several different frameworks out there. And that's why we're in an exciting time. And there's all these different frameworks that are coming out to solve these certain specific use cases, and some will do certain things better than others. And that's kind of what we look at. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So, Rodden, I hope that answers your question. Thanks. Thanks for participating. Good. He says thanks, Alex. I'm just going to say one last time, if we're probably going to start wrapping things up, give away the shirts.
Yep.
So if you do have a final question or a final thought, feel free to just throw it in the chat window. Alex will be here for another couple minutes. And always, if you have any questions, email them to us, techtalk@layer7.com, and we'll get Alex or one of the other experts to answer your question. And always, you can tweet questions to the hashtag Layer7Live. So I think I'm going to let Jose give away the shirt.
Should we? Let's start off with this is one of my favorite ones. So
actually, sorry, Alex, do you have any final kind of thoughts you wanted to wrap things up with?
No, just want to say, if anyone has any other questions for us, we do attend a lot of hackathons, so find us there, all over the country, all over the U.S., all over the world.
What's next for you? Where are you going next?
The next hackathon that I'm scheduled to go to is in Miami, Florida, on December 14th and 15th. It's another AT&T hackathon that we're partnered with them. It's going to be actually a really big one. There's a lot. I think they already have several hundred people signed up. So we'll be there December 14th, 15th, and you can also go to mobileapphackathon.com where they list. There's a lot of hackathons listed, and also another great resource by a great visionary here in our industry is hackweekends.com. If you're interested in getting into more hackathons, trying out these mobile frameworks, hackathons are a great place to go spend. I'm going to spend 10 hours and just try out. I want to try out Trigger.io. Or even just last weekend in Las Vegas, a guy was there. He was has a day job as a software developer. He never actually built a mobile app. Within about 30 minutes, I had him up and running with PhoneGap, and he was building his mobile app and configuring it, doing cool stuff, and had it all going on his iPhone and running. So
In how long? How long did that take?
In less than 30 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
Using something like PhoneGap and having but also hackathons are good because there's people there who are brought in to help the developers, and so this guy came and sat down and he said, hey, PhoneGap, and I said sure, and so I was able to just help him get him up and running, show him some pointers, and quickly he's building his own mobile apps. So that's why hackathons are great. Cool. Yeah, and a lot of developers who have great day jobs come to these hackathons. They say, hey, I want to try out this framework. I want to learn, from people who've done it before, and I want to try it in an environment where more risk is accepted. In their day job, they may get in trouble for trying too many new things, but you can come to a hackathon, try it out, and then bring that back to your day job as a valuable new resource.
Wow, that's great.
Okay, should we go ahead and give out the shirt?
Yeah. I think so.
All right. Well, we'll start out with this one. This one is probably my favorite shirt. Well, close to it, but
are you sure it's in the shot there?
It was in the shot.
Okay.
I'm extremely sure. So, how should we give these away? We've got 2 shirts to give away. We can have somebody answer one of our expert questions, and we can also just give them away.
We could just pick somebody that attended. We could ask the API question. Nobody's answered yet. We've asked it 3 times. What's the most popular API on the web? And there's a little hint. You could probably find the answer on programmable web.
Yes.
I think, Alex, you came up with that question last time you were here with us in the summertime. And nobody's actually answered it right. I think people are just guessing. And, some of the logical ones are there, but the most popular API on the web is by far the most popular. And just have a look. So send us the answer, tweet it to Layer 7 Live. You can email it at the Tech Talk at Layer 7. Chat it in right now, and we'll get your details offline and we'll send you a shirt.
Yep. And there's 2 of them. So if we do get 2 people to answer the question, then perfect. If you would like a shirt also and you don't know the answer, email us and we might have something to give you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Alex.
Okay.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks for everybody who was here and participated, listened, and thanks, Rodden, for those questions. Thanks for everybody who emailed those questions in as well. Thanks, Alex. That was very good. Thanks from San Francisco.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and we'll be back in early December. Stay tuned for the details for the next Tech Talk.
Thank you. Bye.